You have certainly heard about Donald Trump's misogynistic comments about women, his fear-mongering about Muslims and immigrants, his Twitter rants, and his claim to build a big, beautiful wall. But what you might not know is that Donald Trump is a pathological liar. In fact, Politico looked at a week of Trump's public statements, 4.5 hours, and determined that he lied more than 6 times. On average, that's a lie every 5 minutes. Here at Correct the Record, we've done our own analysis. We took a look at just 23 of the fact checks where the Washington Post has given Donald Trump its worst possible rating of 4 Pinocchios. We added up all the times he has repeated those lies, oftentimes after they have been judged false, and found that Donald Trump has accrued well more than 1,000 Pinocchios. Donald Trump is a serial liar, but don't take my word for it. See for yourself.
Do you remember when they said they were going to only take 3,000, then it was 6,000, and I said it was going to be a lot more. I was saying 200,000. You know what? I'm right, okay?
Now they want to talk about 200,000. I'm looking at all these men. We're going to bring them into our country. We know nothing about them.
Well, can you imagine they want to bring 200,000 in, and we don't even know where they come from. We don't know what's going on. We don't know whether they are part of ISIS.
Now I hear we want to take in 200,000. And I'm saying we're going to take in 200,000 people that we have no idea where they come from.
To bring these 200,000 people in, 200,000, that's like an army. We're taking in 200,000. They want to take in 200,000. Okay? 200,000.
What I won't do is take in 200,000 Syrians who could be ISIS. John, I've been watching this migration, and I see the people. I mean, they're men. They're mostly men, and they're strong men. Where now they're talking about bringing 200,000 people into the United States. Those 200,000 people, and they have to know this, and the world will hear it, are going back. We're not going to accept 200,000 people that may be ISIS. I said 3,000. Oh, couldn't somebody else do it? But the answer is yes on the human. Then I heard 10,000. Okay. They're up now to over 200,000 people they want to take. And now they're talking about taking 200,000 people. And you know what that's costing? They're talking about taking 200,000 people.
It started, if you remember, Mika, with 2,000 or 3,000. Then it went up to 10,000, then 15. The last number I heard was 200,000. 200,000.
200,000 people. This could be the greatest Trojan horse. This could make the Trojan horse look like peanuts if these people turned out to be a lot of ISIS.
So when I heard 10,000 and 3,000, a number, you know, from on a humane basis, I'd say, all right. But now we're talking about 200,000.
Now I hear we want to take in 200,000 Syrians, right? And they could be, listen, they could be ISIS.
And the number he wants is much higher than 10,000. I've heard it's 200,000. That's the real number he wants. I've even heard 250,000.
Our president wants to take in 250,000 from Syria. I mean, think of it, 250,000 people. But with the problems our country has, to take in 250,000 people, some of whom are going to have problems, big problems.
We want to take in 200,000, and we don't know where they come from. They have no papers. I heard a number today, 200,000. So we're supposed to take 200,000 people that we have no idea who they are? And by the way, taking in 200,000 is going to cost us, they just did a study, over a period of 10 years, it's going to cost us billions of dollars. And now we're going to take in 200,000 people in this country?
It's insane. And I think what he really has in mind is 200,000 people, and maybe even more than that, coming into our country. I have it upon a certain amount of knowledge. I'm very friendly with a lot of people on both sides, that Obama's plan is 200 to 250,000.
The real number is anywhere from 18 to 19 and maybe even 21%. Our real unemployment is anywhere from 18 to 20%.
You probably have a 20% unemployment rate. Probably we have 20% unemployment, not 5.6%. The real unemployment number, Greta, is probably close to 20%.
Our real unemployment rate is probably 19 to 21%.
I have been saying 20%
21. The other day I heard somebody actually say 41%. You know, somebody actually last week said we have a 40% unemployment. So I've been saying 19 to 21%. But somebody actually came out last week and said we have a 40%, and they might very well be right. It's really, if you add it up, it's probably 40% if you really think about it.
The unemployment rate is probably 20%, but I will tell you, you have some great economists that will tell you it's 30, 32, and the highest I've heard so far is 42%.
You know, somebody said, a very, very talented person, said our unemployment rate, and I'm not gonna take this number, but actually said our unemployment rate is 42%. Think of it. And if you really add it up, it is. So I only say 20, 21, 22, because I want to be nice to the president, okay? You know, our real unemployment rate is like through the roof. It's not 5.3 or 5.4. It's probably 24 or 25%.
But your real unemployment number is probably 25 or 30%, Ray. It's not 5.2%.
Yeah. Our number's probably 25%.
You know, the real number in terms of unemployment, the real number, a number where people that really want jobs, if you look at the real number, it's over 20%, could be as high as 25%.
Probably real numbers like 22, 23%. Don't believe those phony numbers when you hear 4.9 and 5% unemployment. The number's probably 28, 29, as high as 35. In fact, I even heard recently 42%.
Our real number is probably 25 to 30% unemployment.
Our real number is in the 20s.
The real number is probably 20 or 25%.
Right.
The rate we really have is close to 20%, maybe over 20%, or you wouldn't have the kind of crowds they have. The real unemployment rate is probably 20%. It could even be higher than that.
Our real unemployment is probably 20% or damn close. We buy drugs, biggest in the world, and we pay about $300 billion more than we're supposed to if we negotiated the price.
If we negotiated the price of drugs, Joe, we'd save $300 billion a year.
If we bid out pharmaceuticals, drugs, and those things, we would save each year $300 billion. $300 billion as a country.
And they don't want to bid out drugs. If you bid them out, we'll save $300 billion. $300 billion. And we don't even do it.
For instance, drugs with Medicare. They don't bid them out. They don't bid them. They pay like this wholesale incredible number. They say like 300 billion could be saved if we bid them out. If we negotiated, you know what we'd save? Almost $300 billion a year. Can you believe that? $300 billion. So maybe it's 200 billion, maybe it's 350, but nobody knows. But in my book, The America We Deserve, I said Osama bin Laden. Gotta watch him. Bad guy. In my book, before the World Trade Center came down, I said Osama bin Laden. I said, you better take him out. He's going to be trouble. In my book, it says Osama bin Laden. You got to take him out.
Look at my book, which was written a couple of years prior to the attack. I actually mentioned the name of Osama bin Laden, that he's a bad terrorist and we have to do something about it. I said that Osama bin Laden will come back into the United States.
I wrote a book in 2000. And in the book, I mentioned Osama bin Laden. I said, bad guy, he's going to do damage to our country, and we better do something to stop him. This was 2 years before the World Trade Center came down through him.
And now people are seeing that. They're saying, you know, Trump predicted Osama bin Laden, which actually is true. I said, take out Osama bin Laden in a book written in the year 2000 called The America We Deserve.
I did the book and mentioned Osama bin Laden and essentially said he's going to crawl under a rock and you better put him away. And they didn't put him away, and you saw what happened.
Vision was writing about Osama bin Laden in my book in 2000. Nobody ever heard of Osama. I wrote about Osama bin Laden.
They did what I said. You would have had Osama bin Laden killed before he ever got to the World Trade Center. You know that. And some of the commentators actually said, Trump wrote about Osama bin Laden before the World Trade Center came down. I get a lot of credit for it. Big deal. I don't want credit.
And I did mention in my book, and Joe was nice enough to say, wow, Trump actually talked about bin Laden before the World Trade. I said, take him out before the World Trade Center came down.
I wrote about Osama bin Laden in 2000, the year 2000, in my book. That Osama bin Laden, bad guy. I saw him on television. I saw him in the papers. He was very threatening. I said, they better take this guy out.
I predicted in my book Osama bin Laden was going to come in and do damage.
I don't know. I just wrote in the book that Osama bin Laden, bad guy, we better do something. He's going to crawl under a rock, I think I said.
I said in the book, 2 years before the World Trade Center came down, you better do something about this guy, Osama bin Laden.
In 2000, I wrote a book, and I said, Osama bin Laden, you better take him out. He's a bad guy.
I'm the one that wrote about Osama bin Laden in my book before the World Trade Center was knocked down. And a lot of people are saying, wow, Trump actually predicted that.
And we've got a terrorist out there named Osama bin Laden, and we better do something about him. And I said, he goes, he gets hit, and then he crawls under a rock. All this stuff. I said, I mentioned him in the book. And I said, you better put this guy away, essentially, because he's coming to get us. You better do something. So I have it in the book. Watch Osama bin Laden. If you read the book, it says Osama bin Laden, the guy. And the reason was he was a terrorist that was getting a lot of notoriety. He made very vicious statements toward our country. And I said, you better watch that guy. I wrote about Osama bin Laden. We got to take him out.
I'm talking about illegal immigrants are pouring into our country. And with that comes tremendous crime. You look at the stories with the tremendous amounts, it's a crime wave.
It's a cesspool right now, what's going on, and people are coming in that are, loaded up with drugs, and they're selling drugs. And immigration, and in particular illegal immigration, has become a very big factor. Now, a lot of bad things have happened with respect to crime since I brought it up. We have to get them out, and some of these people are causing tremendous problems. All you have to do is look at the crime wave.
We have you look at what's going on the border with Kate and with all of the problems in San Francisco, with all of the problems that we've got. You look at what's going on in the country with crime and with our inner cities and everything. The Mexican government is sending over people that have been big problems for them, criminals, drug dealers, etc. You will see the kind of people coming. You'll see the kind of crime that's being committed. And we're taking these people.
They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
You look at the crime, you look at the tremendous impact they have on our country economically. You look at what's pouring across the border.
We need protection in our country. You look at the kind of crime, you look at what's going on economically. We need borders. We're going to have a wall. Mexico's paying for it. We're going to have a wall. And we're going to stop bad things from happening in this country. Because if you look at what's going on, and you look at the tremendous crime, and you look at the drugs that are pouring across the border, the drugs are pouring like water. They're pouring across.
We have to have a strong southern border. Drugs are pouring across the border. Tremendous problems. We're having tremendous problems with crime.
People are coming across the border. There's tremendous crime happening. I turned out to be right on that. I don't think the Pope really understood in terms of the crime problem and the problems of illegal immigration.
You see what's going on with the crime and all that. I don't hold that against Mexico.
And you see the damage that's been done to our country with the weak borders. You see what's happening. You see the crime. You see the drugs flowing in and poisoning our youth and everybody else.
But I made some very strong statements about the crime and the problems that were happening, and I've been proven right. When I say that Mexico is, I'm talking about the country of Mexico, the government of Mexico. They're sending us criminals. In other words, instead of putting them in their jails, they're sending them to us. They're sending us drug dealers and people that have lots of other problems, and they're sending them over there.
You look at the statistics on rape, on crime, on everything coming in illegally into this country, they're mind-boggling.
Now everybody's apologized to me. Illegal immigration. He said, I don't like Trump's statements. Now everybody's apologized because I turned out to be right. And you've had massive crime. We have people pouring in. They're pouring in. And they're doing tremendous damage. If you look at the crime, if you look at the economy.
I talked about illegal immigration. It's costing us $250 billion a year. Tremendous problems, tremendous crime, and nobody disputes it.
Look, tremendous crime, taking jobs. You have no idea what's happening. I call it illegal immigration.
You see what happens with all of the things going on, all of the tremendous crime going on. It costs us $200 billion a year for illegal immigration right now.
What's happening at the border is a disgrace. Not only the people flowing across, but the crime is like a crime wave.
I mean, we can be babies and we can say it doesn't exist. Tremendous crime coming in. I think I've done a great service, frankly.
And we're talking about $10 billion.
Wall's probably $8 billion, which is a tiny fraction of the money that we lose with Mexico.
The wall's going to cost $12 billion, maybe less. If I build it, it'll be taller, better, and less, okay?
But Mexico's going to pay because the wall is $12 billion, $10 to $12 billion.
The wall is going to cost $12 billion.
Now, the wall is $10 billion to $12 billion if I do it. The wall is $10 to $12 billion. We can do it for 10 to 12, and it's a real wall.
It's going to cost $10 billion to build the wall. The wall's going to cost a fraction of that, maybe $10 or $12 billion, and it's going to be a real wall. Let's say the cost of the wall is $10 billion. The wall is going to cost $10 billion. And you have a $10 billion wall. It's going to cost $10 billion. The wall is going to cost approximately $10 billion.
The wall's going to cost $10 billion to build. You have a $10 billion wall.
You know, you're talking about a $10 billion wall.
And a wall's going to cost $10 billion.
The wall's going to cost 10.
The wall is going to cost $10 billion to build.
The wall's going to cost $10 billion.
And the wall costs $10 billion? The wall is going to cost $10 billion.
The wall's going to cost $10 billion, okay? Just so you understand. Wall's going to cost $10 billion.
The wall is going to cost $10 to $12 billion, okay?
Wall's going to cost $10 billion. Wall's probably $8 billion. You know, they were going to spend $12 billion on the wall. I'm going to spend 7 or 8. It's going to be bigger, better, and nicer. Let's say the wall is going to cost $7 billion. They were saying 12. Mine will be bigger, better, stronger for half the price, okay?
Let's say the wall costs $4 billion. You know, they say $10 billion. A 13,000-mile wall 2,000 years ago. We have 2,000, of which you need 1 because you have a lot of natural barriers. And we're talking about $10 billion.
Who has the oil? Iran is going to have the oil, and ISIS has a lot of it. And then you have Libya, where ISIS has taken over the oil. And the Libyan oil is the best oil. My oil experts tell me this. It's so beautiful. It's up high. It's so beautiful. It's the best quality. You know who has the oil? ISIS has the oil. And you take a look at Libya. You take a look at what's going on. Look at the oil that's pouring out, funding wars all over the place, and we don't do anything about it.
ISIS now has Libyan oil. You know, it's among the finest oils in the world. ISIS now has the Libyan oil. We don't even do anything to.
Mr. Trump,
we don't even do anything to stop it.
Let me pick
They're
up
making a fortune with Libyan oil.
And we're not doing it in Libya either. They just took over the Libyan oil, and they're sending it out. We're not doing a thing about it. They're becoming richer and richer because we have people that don't know what they're doing.
ISIS is making millions and millions of dollars a week selling Libya oil.
They've now taken over the oil in Libya, so they now have some of the finest oil in the world. We're doing nothing about it. You have to knock them out fast.
Right now, Libya, as you know, has fantastic oil. Some of the finest oil in the world. Who has the oil? ISIS has the oil. ISIS is making a fortune now in Libya.
ISIS has now taken over Libya, and they've taken over the oil, and they're selling all Libyan oil, and we don't do blockades. We don't do anything. In Libya, great oil. You know, it's among the finest oil patches in the world in terms of quality oil. You know who's got that oil now? ISIS! ISIS has the oil. And you know what they're doing with the oil? They're selling the oil all over, and ships are pulling in, and they're just selling it like crazy, and they're making a fortune.
Libya was an example. Libya is a disaster. And by the way, just in case you have any questions, right now ISIS has taken the oil from Libya.
He said some really nice things. He called me a genius. He said Trump's a genius.
Now, Putin called me a genius, by the way. He said, Donald Trump is a genius, and he's the absolute leader over there. You know, Vladimir Putin said Donald Trump is a genius. He's going to do very well. That's a real genius. So he said, great. We had a thing recently, you saw, where Putin said these great things about Donald Trump. Did you see that? He said Trump is a genius. Trump is the best leader. Trump is amazing. Okay, he said nice things.
He said Trump is a genius, okay?
We will get along with many of these countries. When Putin said Trump is a genius, Trump is this, Trump, he said Trump's a genius. And I like him because he called me a genius. He said Trump is the new real leader. Trump should be the leader, and he's a total genius.
You did say you could get along very well with Vladimir Putin. You did at one point say, let Russia take care of ISIS.
Called me a genius. I like him so far, I have to tell you.
Putin comes out, he said, Donald Trump is brilliant. He's doing an amazing job, and he's leading the pack. Okay, that's nice. Putin said Donald Trump is a genius.
Called me a genius, actually, so it was very nice.
Putin said nice things about me. I don't know Putin, but he said nice things about me. He said Trump is a genius, and Trump is going to win, and Trump is leading the party.
He called me a genius. He said Donald Trump is a genius, and he's going to be the leader of the party.
Our trade deals are horrible. We're losing on every single deal we make.
In the Bush
administration, one of the worst
administration.
deals ever made in
Bush
the history
41.
of our country, and it has just destroyed manufacturing and destroyed.
All right,
jobs
that's a
in our
valid
country.
point.
With our trade, I mean, you look at what China's doing to their currency with devaluations. They're killing us. They're killing us on trade, and you know, trade is the single and devaluation. If you want to really take a hard look at what's going on, the devaluation is the single greatest tool that these other countries are using to absolutely kill us, assuming they have capability, manufacturing capability, etc. Our trade deals are killing this country. They're killing this country. We can't continue to have trade deficits with China of $500 billion a year.
And again, remember this, NAFTA has been a total disaster for our country.
We're making horrible trade deals. We're losing our jobs. We're losing our manufacturing. It's trade. NAFTA is the worst deal, one of the worst deals our country's ever made from an economic standpoint.
All right.
One of the worst deals ever. It's taken, if you've seen what it's done to New York State and New England and virtually every state, but it has sucked the jobs out of our country. It sucked the money out of our country.
I'm not angry at Japan. They send cars over by the millions. We give them practically nothing. You talk about a trade imbalance. They're up here, we're down like below that stage. It's trade imbalance. It doesn't matter that this country is losing all of its jobs, all of its money. We're third world status. About 6 months ago, I'll never forget, I said, well, they'll never be able to devalue again. That was 2 years ago. And then they did the greatest devaluation in the last 20 years. 6 months ago, 5 months ago. And a massive devaluation, which meant, let's take more money out of the United States. We're going to take more, our economy's going a little bit bad, let's take more money out of the United States. And we let them get away with it. Just remember, they're taking that money from us mostly. They're taking it out of our country. They're taking it out of our hide. They're taking it out of our jobs. We're losing everything. So we have to fight back. We've been losing to China for years. We've been losing to Japan with the cars. They send in millions of cars. We send them wheat. We send them nothing practically. The trade imbalance is massive.
These trade deals have sucked everything out of our country.
When the World Trade Center came tumbling down, and I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering.
I said that I saw in parts of New Jersey, Jersey City, but parts of New Jersey, I saw people getting together and in fairly large numbers celebrating as the World Trade Center was coming down. And I saw people, and I saw them on television, and I read about it on the internet.
Are you sticking with your Jersey City estimate?
Oh, yeah, sure. I saw it. It was on
saw
television.
that with your own
saw
eyes?
it. Georgia
Please
did
say it
happen.
didn't
There
happen.
were people that were cheering in the other side of New Jersey where you have large Arab populations. They were cheering as the World Trade Center came down. I know it might be not politically correct for you to talk about it, but there were people cheering as that building came down, as those buildings came down. And that tells you something. It was well covered at the time, George. Now, I know they don't like to talk about it, but it was well covered at the time. There were people over in New Jersey that were watching it, a heavy Arab population that were cheering as the buildings came down.
I start getting phone calls in my office by the hundreds that they were there and they saw this take place. You notice what's happening in New Jersey? They're now finding a lot of people are saying, yeah, that did take place in New Jersey, right? I wasn't going to apologize. This article says they were swarming all over the place. Right. So I don't know what that means, but it means a lot of people.
Oh, then
this
I'm always
says
right.
Swarming all over
you
New
know
Jersey.
I'm always right.
Nobody believed me. Some people believe me. By the way, thousands of people believe me because they saw it. So I have some good people. And they checked and they checked. And believe me, it's being cleared off, plenty of stuff.
I've had hundreds and hundreds of calls and tweets of people that saw it, and plenty of people saw it.
I saw it on television. So did many other people. And many
Jersey
people. I've
City,
had hundreds.
you saw Jersey
in the area.
City.
I also heard Patterson. Excuse me.
Okay.
I've heard Jersey City. I've heard Patterson. It was 14 years ago. But I saw it on television. I saw clips. And so did many other people. And many people saw it in person. I've had hundreds of phone calls to the Trump Organization saying, we saw it. It was dancing in the streets. And by the way, the Washington Post, now he tried to pull back, but the Washington Post reported tailgate parties and reports of tailgate parties. Tailgate parties means like for a football game where you have hundreds and hundreds and maybe even thousands of people having tailgate parties. I saw it at the time. I stick by it. Hundreds of people have confirmed it. I've had hundreds of people call in and tweet in on Twitter saying that they saw it and I was 100% right. This is people in this country that love our country that saw this. By the hundreds they're calling and they're tweeting. And there is a lot of people in Sarasota. People would tell me yesterday they used to live in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. They remember it vividly. They thought it was disgusting. So these are people that saw it too. The Washington Post reported it. Other people, many people have seen it. So I believe that I have a very good memory, Chuck. I'll tell you, I have a very good memory. I saw it somewhere on television many years ago, and I never forgot it. And it was on television too.
A lot of things happened today where they were dancing and they were happy. There were a lot of happy people over in New Jersey. And I saw it, and a lot of people saw it, and I'm getting hundreds of phone calls, and a lot of other people are too. And things are all of a sudden materializing. I said very strongly and very correctly, I said, there are people over there, and they were dancing in the street, and they were dancing on rooftops. So I was taking heat. Because, the liberal media, they want to guard that. They don't want that out.
Well, I don't know that I'm wrong, Bill. This just came out from Breitbart. Literally, it just came out. Trump vindicated, 100% vindicated.
And I have another one at Real Donald Trump where Curtis Sliwa, the Guardian Angels, he was doing a show of some kind, either a television or radio show, and he talked about what was happening over in New Jersey. And, people know, and I've been called by hundreds of people, I've been called by literally hundreds of people. And also, the Twitter, which is so big. Between Facebook and Twitter, I have 10 million people. I saw it. So many people saw it, Chuck.
Hi.
Chuck, it did happen in New Jersey. I have hundreds of people that agree with me.
We're going to do cutting, and the economy is going to grow exponentially.
You also said that this tax plan is going to cost you a fortune.
It'll cost me a lot of money.
It reduces or eliminates most of the deductions and loopholes available to special interests and to the very rich. In other words, it's going to cost me a fortune.
I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. I came into Manhattan.
Believe me, I got very, very little, and I built it into many, many, many billions of dollars, and I'm very proud of it.
I don't know why he spent $4 million in legal fees to keep his records, away. Nobody's seen his records. I don't know. Maybe the hackers have his records. It'll be very. No, I meant his college records. He spent $4 million in legal fees to make sure that nobody ever saw.
We should have never gone into Iraq. I've said it loud and clear. I was visited by people from the White House asking me to could I be silenced because I seemed to get a disproportionate amount of publicity.
They said going into Iraq, that was in 2003, you can check it out. Check out, I'll give you 25 different stories. In fact, a delegation was sent to my office to see me because I was so vocal about it.
When President Obama landed in Cuba on Air Force One, no leader was there, nobody, to greet him. Perhaps an incident without precedent in the long and prestigious history of Air Force One. There are scores of recent migrants inside our borders charged with terrorism. For every case known to the public, there are dozens and dozens more.
This is the man that was a managing general partner at Lehman Brothers when it went down the tubes and almost took every one of us with us, including Ben and myself. And Lehman Brothers started it all. He was on the board, and he was a managing general partner. I hit him much harder than he ever thought possible, including the fact that he worked for Lehman Brothers, which took down the world. I mean, this guy was working for Lehman Brothers when it collapsed.
And I have this guy who's a managing director of Lehman Brothers, which almost took the whole world down, and he's saying, well, I don't know if Trump has the experience.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
After John Kasich helped Wall Street predator Lehman Brothers destroy the world economy, he decided to run for governor of Ohio.
He was a managing director of Lehman Brothers when it failed. It went bankrupt, and it almost destroyed the world. Lehman Brothers was the beginning of a tremendous mass destruction, and he was a managing director of Lehman Brothers. I said, wait a minute. You were a managing director of Lehman Brothers, which almost took the entire economy down. Okay, give me a break.
Take a look at the early debates, the way he came after me, and the way I said, but you headed up Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers almost brought down the country. You were on Lehman Brothers when Lehman Brothers crashed. He was a managing director. I said, Lehman Brothers almost brought down the country. What the hell are you doing running for president? It almost brought down the country. We have to get rid of at least some of the debt, if not all. We're up to $19 trillion, and we have a country that's in serious trouble. We have $19 trillion in debt. We're going to get the debt paid. We're going to do things right. No, I like Ben Carson. He's not a deal maker, and we need somebody in this country that's going to get rid of the $19 trillion in debt, that's going to bring back our jobs, that's going to bring back our manufacturing.
But he says...
And then I just asked about stories that were appearing all over the place, not just in the National Enquirer, about the fact that a picture was taken of him and Lee Harvey Oswald, and they didn't deny that picture.
I don't think they denied it. I didn't see it. Maybe they denied it later, but I haven't seen them deny it. Certainly they didn't deny it when it was first made.
No, all I was doing was referring to a picture that was reported and in a magazine, and I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Well, look, you know, when a family flies into the World Trade Center, a man flies into the World Trade Center, and his family gets sent back to where they were going, and I think most of you know where they went, and by the way, it wasn't Iraq, but they went back to a certain territory. They knew what was happening. The wife knew exactly what was happening. These people put their wives and whatever, they put their family, but they put their wives on airplanes a day or two before, all going back except for one to Saudi Arabia, okay? They're all going back to Saudi Arabia, and they're all going, in other words, they're leaving. Those wives, I guarantee you, those wives knew every single thing that was going to take place. And they probably said to themselves, let's go home and watch our husbands knock down the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and almost wherever the other plane was landing, except we had some very brave passengers on that plane, frankly. But wherever that plane was going to land, it ended up in a field in Pennsylvania. But They went home. They knew exactly.
They want to live. They want to live. And they want to take care of their families, always their families. Remember that, because their families know what's going on, okay? You think their wives don't know what they're planning? You think their kids don't know exactly what daddy's doing when daddy's going to fly into the World Trade Center? You think they don't know? They know exactly what's going on. Remember that.
He didn't want to racially okay, you're okay, you're innocent. Or how about where the families and the girlfriends and the wives and everything, they go back with World Trade Center? The worst than Pearl Harbor. Because with the World Trade Center, they were killing innocent civilians.
The World Trade Center came down. And by the way, speaking of coming down, they put their families on airplanes a couple of days before, sent them back to Saudi Arabia for the most part. Those wives knew exactly what was going to happen. And those wives went home to watch their husbands knock down the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and wherever the third plane was going, except we had some very, very brave passengers wherever that third plane was going. Those wives knew exactly what was happening. Well, at least I would certainly go after the wives who absolutely knew what was happening.
They left 2 days earlier with respect to the World Trade Center, and they went back to where they went, and they watched their husband on television flying into the World Trade Center, flying into the Pentagon, and probably trying to fly into the White House, except we had some very, very brave souls on that third plane. All right?
Their family, in particular the wives, know everything that's going on. And I guarantee you, every one of those wives went back home and they wanted to watch on television the destruction that their husbands were going to cause.
They know what was going on. If you look at what happened with these terrorists, they put their wives on the planes. Those wives knew exactly what was happening. The children, everybody knew, but they put their wives and families on those planes. They went home. They knew what was going to happen. They sat back and watched Daddy on television.
How do you know they knew?
Because that's the way life is. Because I'm a realist. That's the way life works. All right. We can't allow this to happen. They take the wives, they put them on planes, they send them home. Let's go home and let's watch Daddy tonight on television. Knock down the World Trade Center. There has to be retribution. And if there's not going to be retribution, you're never going to stop terrorism.
And yet in 2008, she was the original birther. She's the one that started that whole thing. Hillary is a birther.
Do you know who started the birther movement? Do you know who started it? Do you know who questioned his birth certificate, one of the first? Hillary Clinton. She's the one that started it. She brought it up years before it was brought up by me. Do you know that Hillary Clinton was a birther? She wanted those records and fought like hell. People forgot. Do you know that John McCain was a birther, one of those records? They couldn't get the records. Hillary failed. John McCain failed. Trump was able to get him to give something.
And Kasich keeps talking about how well he does in polls against Hillary. He hasn't had one negative ad. As soon as he has a couple of negative ads, he's going to drop like a rock. But he's had no negative ads. I've had 55,000 negative ads. Can you believe that?
I look at what's going on, and Kasich can never win. He hasn't had one negative ad yet.
Now, Kasich has had no negative ads. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody even knows who he is. No, of course he's had no negative.
I've been hit by 55,000 ads. I saw it on your show. 55,000 negative ads, and nobody else has. You know, you look at a guy like Kasich. He's never been hit by an ad because nobody cares, frankly.
I will really gladly give them. They're not going to learn anything, but it's under routine audit. When the audit ends, I'm going to present them.
You don't learn much from tax returns, but I would love to give the tax returns, but I can't do it until I'm finished with the audit.
You can't learn from a tax return. You can't learn, honestly, you can't learn very much from a tax return. Frankly, almost nothing.
Nobody believed me. Some people believe me. By the way, thousands of people believe me.